All right. So, first off, I want to say thank you for coming. Today's NCOPD. It's a little abnormal. As you look to your left and right, you can see that there are some officers in here. So, today's training actually is going to cover some information that is vital to the entire command. And the CG felt it important that that it not only go to our non-commissioned officers, but also to our officers as well. So our training today is going to be joint manpower, strength management, and the out-processing processes, okay? And a few other things as well. So at the end of today's training, you should have a better understanding of the whole JTD, JTMD reorg process. And I know here at the beginning that's like JT what, you know, but you're gonna hear it in the classes and the people that speak to get a better understanding of the whole joint process and how does that affect all of you. Why is it important to the staff sergeants that are in here, or the sergeants that are in here, and so on and so forth? Well, you have to look at it as a giant gear, okay? And there are multiple moving parts and multiple pieces. And our goal is to meet the commander's intent, which is to convert our unit into a warfighting unit, right? So, in doing so, there are a lot of moving pieces. All those moving pieces are like a cog in that gear. Each one of you may have some little piece. You're one little cog of this giant gear. And if you fail to do your little piece, or to understand your little piece, the entire chain falls off and the bike freaking stops going, right? So, you may not have a soldier or an airman or something under you now, but you may in the future. And understanding the process of how to get that replacement, whether it be your replacement or a service member placed under you, replacement, not just the replacement, but getting the right person in that billet. Because it's all up to us how we write it up, how we publish it, how we post it, that we get the exact specifications or the exact MOS or AFSC that we are looking for with the right qualifications. So understanding that and doing that is what gets you your service member that your directorate wants and needs in order to complete the mission that we're trying to accomplish. So with that, bear with us. There will be specific things that are targeting how the Army process works, how the Air Force works, so on and so forth. But just as I said, you may have a service member and understanding how they come down on assignment to physically leave the unit may be that missing piece that you need in order to help your service member have a smooth transition out and at the same time have a smooth transition of getting the right body in. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Ceballos, who is the main facilitator for today's training. She has an entire team of people that will get up and speak in the different functional areas, and I hope that at the end we are able to give you all the information you need, but there will be time for questions and so on at the end of each subsection, depending on how time is going and so on. They may ask, does anybody have questions of my functional area? And at that time you can ask your questions or whatever. But in the end, when all the training is done and over with, we hope that you have a better big box picture of our movement forward in the future. So with that, Chief Ceballos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is that too loud? Is that okay? Okay. Okay. First, I'm the OIC for the Manpower and Strength Management branch within J1. I would like to introduce the rest of the team that are going to be briefing you today. We have TW2 Tarosa, Jennifer Tarosa. She is our SME on Reserve Affairs. We also have also Manpower and Strength Management Office. Master Sergeant Rex is the NCOIC. Here on the computer I have Sergeant First Class Boone. In the audience I have Sergeant Hill. From Personal Services and Support Branch we have Sergeant First Class Chavez. He's the NCOIC there. We also have Master Sergeant Jeremy Stanger. He has one, Lisa Hill. Sergeant Cesar Estrada. In the audience, Sergeant Jimenez. Okay. Next one. Here's the agenda. Next slide. Okay, so anytime that we have people coming into our office, everybody mixes up the terms. It seems like almost nobody gets it right. So I just wanted to start off with this slide to let you all know what the different documents that we deal with and the terminology for each of those. Okay, so the joint table of distribution are active duty and civilian, and the joint table of mobilization and distribution, that's our reserve piece. Those two documents are actually one document. The joint mining document, this is a temporary document, the ones that you all should be familiar with. Okay, so the takeaway from this slide is really to understand that the JTD and the JTMD are the baseline document that make up that JMD. Once we have exhausted our resources, then we go for joint individual login teams and also for RFFs or request workforces. Next slide. Okay, so the JTD and JTMD are the joint documents, okay? And those documents reside in a system called Fort Manpower tracking system, right here. But how we get manned is not based on the JTD, it's actually based on the service mining documents. So you have all the service mining documents, they all have a little piece of the pie that come from this. Okay, some of you are probably familiar with the Change Manpower package. Last year we went through that. That happens every year. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in the next few slides. But the changes that happen to the JTD actually trigger changes to these documents. Okay, and then how we actually get people here on the ground is based on specific UICs for each of the services. So when we build requisitions and the one, it's important that we get the right UIC because that's where your orders are going to send you that specific geographic location for the UICs. Okay, now the next slide is going to be about the JTMD, so I'm going to pass it to Chief Rosa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me in the back?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. So the JTMD provides operational support requirements to the headquarters if we were to become a warfighting headquarters. This is our JTMD structure. As you can see, it's comprised of UICs from the different services. So if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that on the Army side, we have reservists assigned to the SOCEUR UIC. Those are our IMAs. We have, thank you. We also have soldiers that are assigned to the SOCOM Army Reserve element out of Tampa, Florida. We have soldiers assigned to the UCOM Army Reserve elements out of Fort Devens, Massachusetts. On the Air Force side, we have IMAs assigned to Det 6 out of MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. And for the Navy, we have a few reservists assigned to Det 208, also out of Tampa. So why do we need these reservists? As I stated, the JTMD is used to augment the headquarters. So, for instance, if Fort was to kick off, the JTMD would provide those backfill for the active duty folks that are here that may deploy forward. And if you haven't noticed, we also have reservists that come out annually for different exercises, such as Trojan Footprint, that's going to be happening here in May. where do we get these reservists? So in the reserves, we don't have manning cycles. Positions are filled by the services advertising vacancies on a monthly basis. The reservists, based on their location, they can apply to those vacancies. For reservists that come out to SOCEUR, they are individually vetted before they are transferred to our books. And then we also have the promotion vacancy board, which is another way that we fill these positions. So the big takeaway here is that the JTMD it's a tool for the command to use. It's not like a hodgepodge of reservists. It should be used to fill any operational or capability gaps that we have here at the command. So if you and your directorate know that you need a certain skill set, MOS, SQI, additional skill identifier, that should be captured on the JTMD. A JTMD is not going to be effective if it's full of a bunch of reservists that you don't need. So whatever the case, the JTMD can be altered each year, annually, through the Change Manpower package, which Chief Ceballos will talk about later. Next slide, please. So for reserve terminology, this just breaks down the different types of duty that we have. So for inactive duty training, that is what a reservist performs in order to maintain their proficiency. So the reservists here we're talking about are the folks that are on the JTMD, not the folks that are here on COEDAS orders. So we've got like over 100 soldiers running around here on COEDAS orders. Those folks are not necessarily permanently assigned to us. These folks here on the JTMD are, so they're there for you to utilize every year. So we have traditional reservists, which those are the reservists that normally would drill once a month with their units back home. We also have the IMAs who are assigned to the headquarters here. They're here to mobilize whenever we need them. And then you also have the AGRs, which they're on a contract term for like 3 years. You know of Colonel Ledbetter, he's an AGR. Colonel Webb is also an AGR. So, excuse me. So, for let's see, we're going to talk about the periods, like how long do we get to keep these reservists. So they're assigned to our JTMD for pretty much as long as they want to be assigned to the unit. Like I said, there's no manning cycle, so they don't leave every 2, 3, 4 years. They may be here for 15 years sometimes in some cases. For the traditional reservists, they'll come out, and also the IMAs, they'll come out for typically 39 days out of the year. You may see that they power drill. If you don't know who your reservists are, because you only see them once a year, let me back up. So they come out once a year. So they'll do like 12 to 29 days of AT, and they'll do 24 days of IDTs. So that's what you see up there. That's all you get them for. I know that there was some questions about, can we mobilize these soldiers for longer? What is the purpose of them coming here if we can't assign, big projects to them because they're only here for 30 days at a time? Those soldiers, that is their training period. That's what they're, by law, that's what they have to do each year to maintain proficiency. So if we do activate a JMD, then we could bring them on for a much longer term. Or in the meantime, we could bring them on COEDAS orders as we do now. So while the reservists are here, and while they're not here, please make sure that you reach out to these reservists because they belong to you. They're not, just because they're not here, 365 days out of the year, doesn't mean they don't exist. So they're still doing evaluations. They're still, they still need to be up on their training. They still need to have systems accesses. and all that stuff. So please make sure that you get to know your reservists. They're an integral part of the mission here. Any questions on the reserve process? Okay, so I'll be followed by Chief Bios.
Okay, so this slide is about the JTD and JTMD reorganization. By the way, I would like to highlight that all of the things that we're right now speaking about are Manpower. Manpower is all about, think about Manpower as your requirements, your spaces, then we'll switch over to strength management, which is the basis. So those are two separate things, although they are very intrinsically interrelated. Okay, so the slide that you have in front of you is to kind of depict the timeline of what we're doing right now. The JTD and JTMD reorganization, we actually already briefed the directors a couple of weeks ago. That reorganization is about that mining document. Right now it's only broken down by divisions. Okay, so what we're doing is breaking down by directors. Each of the directors into divisions, the divisions into branches and offices. There's specific rules for all of that. I won't get into too much detail about that at this point. Just know that your directors are aware of this and they know that this is coming. The TMT should be coming out by the end of next week, where we'll detail all that information. But that reorganization is actually before the change manpower package. Okay, so the first piece here, the brief was completed. The TMT is going to be next. Okay, so the goal is to get that information to SOCOM because SOCOM has to make all those updates in SMTS, the system that I already spoke about, where the JTD and JTMD reside. And then as we move on to the next phase, this is actually where the change manpower package takes place. We're going to be also sending a TMT for that, asking for specific POCs from each of the directorates. We'll do some working groups, work with everybody to make sure that everybody understands the width and right limits of the CMPs, the rules by each of the services, what we can and cannot do. Okay, so this is about a 3-month process. Any change that we require does require a TD, so a position description. Most of the times that's what's hard to get back from the directorates. Okay, but one thing that we're doing a little bit differently this year, we are going to be working very closely with J58 and also probably J32, they manage DIRT, to make sure that the changes that we request are getting after true capability gaps. Okay, so this is about requirements. We should not be making changes to our JTD and JTMD based on people. Okay, make changes based on capability gaps and the future of the command. Unfortunately, at this time, SOCOM does not see us as a warfighting headquarters, so all of this is an effort to get us there. So it's definitely all of this it's a lot of work, but some of the goals that we have from these processes is to also revalidate our JMD and at the same time prepare for a future manpower study. We don't have timelines for that manpower study, but all of this is part of that homework so that we know truly where we stand, and as we reorganize, we should be able to clearly see where the gaps are. So that information goes to SOCOM, and then it goes to joint staff and the services from SOCOM, any of the changes that we request. Right now, we're waiting on the results from last year's change manpower package. Marine Corps is still working through those changes. Most of the services are completed. Once those changes are approved, then they go to the services. Okay, so the first couple of slides that you saw were the JTD triggers changes to the JTD and JTMD. And really the takeaway here, I wanted to highlight this. Okay, so from the time that we initiate those changes and we submit them to SOCOM in August, it can take 12 to 18 months to get like boots on the ground. Okay, so just know that anytime that we request a change to a position, it takes a long time to get the person to actually be working for you. However, some of these services are a little bit more flexible than others. So we do work with the services to try to get to the person as soon as we can. Next slide. Okay, so the CMP, I worked go into too much detail about this, but programmatic changes are the changes of service concerns. So all the services have a vote, okay? So when we change a skill, growth, and UIC, it's wrong, or we're trying to change one position from one geographic location to another. That all goes to the services, and again, they have a vote. Next slide. Automatic changes. So the reorganization that I already touched on is considered an automatic change. So the reason why we want to get ahead before the CMP and do all those automatic changes, because once the change is locked in for a service to work on it, we cannot touch it until the following year. Okay. Next slide. Okay, at this point, we're going to switch over to the strength management side. If there are any questions about my slide, my presentation, let me know. If there are no questions, then I'll hand it over to Master Advice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? So Chief just told you about the spaces, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the Air Force fills these with spaces. The Air Force uses the assignment management system to fill both officer and enlisted requirements here at SOCEUR. These requirements, we have to advertise for them. If we do not put a requirement into the system and say, hey, fill this, the Air Force is not going to automatically send anything to us. So if we don't do our due diligence and make sure that we get those in a timely manner, we're going to end up with gaps, and we're not going to get people. So the enlisted, we don't have a manning cycle. So roughly about a year out, we're going to want to go ahead and look at the current ad that we had from the previous year, see if there needs to be any adjustments made to it, and then we're going to submit that to the system, and it'll get advertised. The officers, on the other hand, they're moving currently from a 3 cycle to a 2 cycle. So what this means is we used to have a spring, a fall, and a summer. Now we're just going to have a winter and a summer. The summer cycle we're currently going through is the last one of the old, and winter will begin the new. Right now we don't have a whole lot of information on when we're going to begin advertising for the winter cycle, but if you see up here, summer is going to be June through September, winter will be October through May. So when this new winter cycle comes along, we're going to start moving from AMS to the talent marketplace. And as you see, we have rated 17 Deltas, 38 Foxtrots, and 41 Alphas are going to be the first AFSCs that are going to be trying out this new system. And there's also a website down there for the MyVector where those officers are going to go in, update their records, and make sure everything's accurate in order to properly be selected for these advertisements. And until further notice, everything else officer-wise will be in AMS. Next slide, please. So whenever we generate these requisitions, the way I've been doing it is I use the old requisition as a baseline. I'm going to send that out to either the directorate or the individual. I've been doing it both ways. And they're going to look over and they're going to say, okay, do these requisitions, are there any special requirements, any mandatory qualifications that we want to include in the advertisements? And I'm having them update those because those are fields that we can control. We can put whatever we want in there to most accurately advertise to the population and get people who have the right skill set in order to meet the requirements of SOCEUR. So something to consider. If a member is looking to depart early, for whatever reason, they found another assignment, they're planning on retiring, we need to get notified as soon as possible. This isn't just for the Air Force, this is across the board. But we need to know as soon as possible because, like I said, for the enlisted, we're going a year out. Because if you don't advertise these almost a year out, there's a possibility that we don't get any fills. If we don't get fills, we have a choice at that point. We can re-advertise it, or we can have a non-vol. Non-vols, which is non-volunteers, are probably the least desirable case because at that point you're getting someone who doesn't necessarily want to be here and may not have the skill set. It's just AFPC, who is our people who actually pick the folks to come into these assignments, is just choosing someone based on the qualifications they see. And the other part of this is, I spoke that we have these two fields that we can actually, the job description and the mandatory qualifications, that we can actually influence, but there's a lot of stuff we can't influence. This information is pulled from the unit manning document. And it's things like the AFSC, the officer's grade, the enlisted's grade. These things are fixed, and when AFPC goes out to build these requisitions, or verify our requisitions, they are going out to look in the unit manpower document to see if this is indeed a requirement that's on our document. And as Chief Ceballos was telling us, those are what feed our fills, and those get, that manpower document gets fed by the joint table of distributions. Next slide, please. This right here is an example of the officer requisition page that we populate. I know it's kind of hard to see, but as you can see, we have report no later than date is one of the fields we can influence. So if we know that somebody's going to try to leave earlier, we can ask for an earlier report no later than date. We also have a duty description. I know that doesn't also always mean a whole lot, but some people, they'll bite just because it sounds like it's a more important job. And then also the qualification, the description of the mandatory qualifications. Next slide, please. And this is an example of the enlisted one. It's not as much information, but one of the things we actually have to determine here is when we want the ad to go, because the ads only stay out in the system for 10 days, so it's a very narrow window to get an applicant to apply. And then also when the selection date is, which tells AFPC, okay, we got a cutoff, we need a selection by then, and then that also can influence the report no later than date. And once again, we have the description of the job, which is most important to me, and then the mandatory qualifications. Are there any questions? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Master Sergeant Stenger. He's going to tell you a little bit about the Air Force out processing.
So over the last few years, the Air Force has really shifted to a self-service out processing process. What will happen is once you have been selected for an assignment, you are going to receive an email from AFPC saying, congratulations, you've been selected for an assignment. Usually within 7 days, you will also receive an email from DET 1, which is our local servicing MPS. What that email is going to include is 3 documents. One is your actual selection. The other is your out processing checklist for orders. And the third piece is any personnel processing codes you need for special, if you have a security clearance requirement, if there's an EF&P requirement, those will all be listed in that PPC. Next slide. This is the checklist. Again, it's a little hard to see up there. DET 1 does a good job of going through and personalizing this checklist to you. So when you receive this checklist, all those pieces there on the left-hand side, those are your memos that go to medical, immunizations, dental, to your security manager. They are listed for you. They have your name, all of your information already on there. What you're going to do is complete all those items, take those items, that checklist to DET 1. They will contact AFPC, and AFPC will cut your orders. It's really fairly simple. The only thing to keep in mind, AFPC will not cut orders earlier than 45 to 60 days out. So if you get this done 90 days out, you're not getting the orders then. AFPC has looked at it, and there have been numerous cases where something has happened, the assignment's been turned off after orders are cut and money is spent. So that's why you don't get that any earlier. I am your liaison between the Air Force element here and DET 1. If there's questions on the forms, how to route them, who to route them to, those come through us. Past that, everything goes through DET 1, as they are your assignment managers. Fairly easy process, but any questions on that? All right. PS1 Health will cover our Navy aspect.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm PS1 Health. I'm going to talk about Navy manning and transfers, health processing for officers and enlisted. So for enlisted members, we have a system called CMSID. CMSID allows service members to apply for their orders. Can everybody hear me? Well, great. They're allowed to submit a request for orders for jobs. They can put a request in every month for up to 5 different duty stations. And every month they'll get an email back saying you've been selected or you weren't selected. And that's up until the 7th month. At that point, you're considered needs of the Navy, and most likely the detailer will be choosing orders for that enlisted member. Another piece that goes along with an enlisted member applying for orders Every enlisted sailor that is E6 and below, under 14 years of service, is required to apply for a Seaway quota. That is a quota to be able to stay in the military, and they have to have that quota in order to negotiate for orders. Any questions? Next slide, please. Officers do not have manning cycles. They basically, once they're 12 months out from their rotation date, their anticipated rotation date, projected rotation date, they're required to contact their detailer. And when they contact their detailer, they're going to discuss job openings. Most of the time, it's in line with any type of requirements where they are in their career milestones and the availability of jobs. Anybody have any questions for me? Okay, great. Now we're going to talk about out processing. So it's the same for Navy personnel, for enlisted and officers. Once a service member receives their orders, the hard copy orders, service member is going to know that they have received orders, and or J1 will receive it. They'll be received in message traffic. The most important thing is that the J1 review and the service member reviews the orders for the requirements. For example, if you're going to an overseas location or you are going to a ship, you have to perform an operational duty screening. Once all of the requirements have been identified, the J1 personnel will draft up a transfer package, something similar to the Air Force, and it will have basically what every requirement listed in the orders will be in paper form with any forms that go along with that transfer package. This is the same for both enlisted and officer. Next slide. In addition to the required forms, those are some other forms that could be, there's a whole list of forms, always. In addition to that, we always have to remember that the member needs to initiate their out processing with the garrison. It is required and mandatory that the member finishes that process. And an approved, completed transfer package is always due to J1 no later than 30 days to the prior date that they want to be able to transfer. That gives J1 enough time to make flight arrangements and to get it signed off by the upper chain of command, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm gonna pass it on to Sergeant Estrada. Oh, no, okay.
All right, I'm going to be talking about the Marine Corps enlisted and officer manning. As you can see, it's the needs of the Marine Corps. Pretty much for this unit, Chief Ceballos is the one that will contact SOCOM, because SOCOM is the ones that will contact our monitors, which the monitor will pick one of their military member or Marine from their MOS, which is our military occupation specialist, where that is where you become admin or intel and so on. So it's pretty easy. Only 85% will be filled as a cap in the UCOM area. Next slide. So Marine Corps out processing. There's 3 steps to the Marine Corps out processing. First step, Marine can contact their monitor at least 6 months out from their RTD date, which is our reporting tour date, which is the same as your DROs. The Marine can ask to go somewhere, such as California or Florida. That doesn't mean he'll get it. It's the monitor's responsibility to assist the Marine, but not to give him what he wants. Once he gets an email through MOL, which is Marine Online, he'll receive a notification stating, hey, you received web orders. Web orders is pretty much a notification where it says what month you have to report to your new unit, and it has your counting numbers where you can start doing your process, such as buying, start booking your tickets, and start doing your TLA and so on. Once they receive those web orders from the RPAC, which is located in Panzer, you will be able to complete what is called an outbound interview, which is located in our MOL. Everything that we do out processing is online. Once you go to the outbound interview, you'll select how many days of leave you want to take, how many travel days you rate, and so on. Once you get that complete, you'll report to the RPAC, where you're going to review what you completed, and then you get a draft of your orders. You don't get your original orders yet. During that time, the Marine's responsibility is to make sure he does all what is required from him, like booking his tickets, getting his TLA done, all that responsibility that you have to do as an out processing. At least 2 weeks out, the Marine has to complete their MROs. And MROs is pretty much your evaluation. For us as fit reps, we have to at least have a draft done before we can receive those orders. The day that you are supposed to leave, the day you start your order, is when you actually receive your original orders. With those original orders is when you are considered out processed from the unit. At this time, does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to pass it to Chief Ceballos.
Hey, one thing I would like to highlight, excuse me, sorry about that. One thing I would like to highlight with Marine officer manning is that although there's no cycles, most of our Marine officers do the part during the summer. And unlike the Army and the Air Force, there's no electronic way to do requisitions. So it's an actual paper that we submit to SOCEUR. The Marine Corps rep for us is Major Patrick, so there's always going to be like a senior Marine. He helped us build those requisitions, make sure that we have the correct information there as far as requirements, much like what my Sergeant Bryce expressed about the Air Force. And we submit those to SOCOM racks and staff, along with the rest of the TSACs. Okay, so then I'm going to talk about the enlisted in officer manning. Sergeant First Class Boone and Sergeant Hill are actually the ones to deal with all of our enlisted strength management. Okay, so like most of the services, enlisted personnel do not have a managed cycle. But when we were honest, just a year out, they both do a really good job at keeping track of all of that information, when the rotation dates are coming up, and they personally contact the service members to figure out if they're going to extend or if they're going to move on. Another way that we manage NCOs in the SOC community is through the USAC slate. So we have 3 of those, E30, E8, and E9 slates, and then the timelines right here. So the one thing that Sergeant wanted me to highlight is the fact that in the past, it's been just a package that is submitted, like a hard copy package. They're going into an electronic version of it. The first one that we conducted that way was the E9 board. We did have some glitches with that system. So as we start to work in that manner with USAC, we'll help you as much as we can to get all of that as correct and accurate as possible. Okay, for the officers, there's 2 cycles. Next slide. Okay, so with the Marine Corps, there's an 85% cap, right? So we're never going to be 100%. With the Army, the TSACs are considered to be by Army manning guidance to be fueled 90 to 100%. Okay, and that's aggregate. So if we're short in one area but we have more people in another, it's aggregate numbers that they're looking at. Okay, so that's how the Army fuels the units. This specific slide here is for the officers. There's 2 cycles. Right now we are dealing with the 1901 cycle. So we're right here. We're actually building requisitions as we speak. Much like the Air Force, we submit those requisitions, the position descriptions, and specific requirements to the affected directorates for their validation. Okay, so the next big cycle is going to be the large one, which is the summer. So those are movers, people that are going to be moving summer 2019. Okay, so big takeaway here, the YMAP is the year-month available to move. So all officers and warrant officers have a YMAP. But when we're overseas, we also have a DIRPOS. Okay, both of those should match. We do conduct scrubs on a monthly basis. Sometimes branch managers like to change the YMA, which is how you get actually move, not the bureaus, specifically for the officers again. When they change it, then we have to inquire like what's the reason. Sometimes the officers don't even know that this was changed. And they do it for several reasons, maybe because you're going to get selected for a school, they're doing some type of talent management, and they already foreseen that you're going to depart early. And there are other reasons, but that's a big one. Okay, so for the next cycle, big thing here is if you're a mover for the summer, officer mover, you want to curtail, you want to extend to either fall in that cycle or be moved to a different cycle. The actions have to be approved by 20 July of this year, okay? So if any of you are thinking about any of those actions, the sooner the better, then you get to work on those. For the 1901 cycle, it's a very small cycle. So we only have about 3 or 4 movers, and we have some vacancies as well. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to go into this area of how the Army is actually doing assignments now. It's last cycle was the first time that this happened, although this is only for the officers. NCOs do pay attention because if you've maybe heard about the integrated pay and personal systems. So the Army is going away with so many different systems that we have, consolidated into one. Okay, so this system here is actually going to be part of that, and this is for talent management. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But if the current way we're managing NCOs is going to go away, and this is going to stay, I'm thinking that it's very possible that this is the way that NCOs are also going to be managed. So I'm using a couple of, this is what the login window looks like. This is for any officer. All officers have access to this now. This is for us in the J1, HRC, and leadership. Okay. Next slide. Okay, again, just like the Air Force, if you don't build a requisition, we're not going to get a field. And if your YMAT, your year-month available to move, is not, you don't fall within that window, and you ask for that to be moved, to be adjusted, and it's too late in the game, again, it's a possibility that you either get this approved for the action that you want, or that if it's approved, your section will go with that field. So again, make sure that you are planning accordingly, keeping all of these timelines in mind. So this is what it looks like when we build a requisition. I won't go into too much detail on that cycle, J1 stuff. Next slide, please. But it's important to highlight, although this is what we do, this is where we build the requisition, and this is what we do get assistance from the leadership, from the directors, and from even the service members. We do have all of the position descriptions within our JTD and also JLA, which I won't even touch on at this moment, but we do pass for validation. Okay, next slide. This is another one of the tasks when we build the requisitions for specific experiences, specific requirements that we want to ask for potential officers. And the officers that are going to be moving, they can actually see this. Next slide. Okay, so the marketplace tab, this is when we build requisitions, and then HRC branch managers, account managers, planners, they validate our requisitions based on the Army's planning guidance, then they populate into this tab. Go to the next slide. Here, when we click on one of this, you actually get a list of officers that are available to move. So if you're a mover, you get a list of units that you can pick from. Next slide. We can actually drill down into this system and look at the officer's record, the ORB, and the resume. Okay, so we actually give access to the leadership within the directorates. They can look at this information right at their desk. J1 does make updates to this section, so we do it with the leadership input. Each directorate goes and takes a look at the officers they have in that pool for the specific position they're looking at filling. Okay, so you have 15 officers in that pool, and then there's only like your top 5. What we do, we only have a couple of options to say we accept or we do not accept. Also, what we do here, there's a comments area. We use that to rank and stat. So like those 5 officers that were willing to accept and say this is number 1, and then the next 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So far, from this cycle, based on the information that we provided through here, we have gotten all of our top choices. So what we're doing is working out. Next slide. Okay, so I wanted to just show you a quick snapshot of what the officer, if you're a mover, or even if you're not a mover, what that looks like for you. Next slide. Okay, so it's my considerations, information here such as Mary Alicopo's program or EFMP is going to show this is available to you, is available to your branch managers. Next slide. Okay, so the resume. The resume is actually really important because the resume, you can build it based on what you want to have in your resume is anything that is not already on your ORB. Okay, and you're looking for a specific job, then this is where you have the opportunity, next slide, to build it. This is what it looks like at the end. Okay, in this last cycle, we didn't really see a lot of resumes, but this is a great opportunity to let HRC, to let the branch managers know, to let the units that are looking at your records know what else you have that we cannot see on your ORB. And so the Army is trying to get away from only managing officers based on an MOS or an AOC or branch and a requirement in a unit. Okay, and like that officer being available to you. What the Army is trying to do is talent manage. And so this is one of the tools that the Army is using for talent management. Again, maybe this will be also the way that NCOs go, so it's important that you don't dismiss this, okay? Next one. Okay, so the why now you're not available to move. Every officer has access to this, so I'll place some responsibility on the officers that you have to go in there and actually review that date. And if that doesn't match your DEROs, please do bring it up to our attention. Again, we conduct those checks and balances, but it is also your personal responsibility to make sure that your information is accurate. Next slide. Okay, any questions at this time?
Chief, I'd just like to step in and highlight something here. Chief Ceballos mentioned it when she was talking about our actual manning and stuff, and she was saying that the Army manning for us is at 90 to 100%, but the word she used was aggregate. So pay very close attention to what that word means. What that means is, for all the directorates that have that one guy that they really, really, really want, and they don't care that they're going to be over strength in that particular MOS, understand that overstrength in certain areas causes shortages in other areas. So when the guy in J3 cannot get that one Sergeant First Class that they really, really, really need, they may have another directorate to blame for being overstrength in those E7s. So I just want to point that out, how big of a consequence having overstrength personnel affect the overall command. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? If there are no questions, I'm going to hand it over to Sergeant First Class Chavez.
Good afternoon. Sergeant First Class Chavez. I'm going to be going over the Army R process portion of the brief. I'm giving some time for questions in a minute. All right, so Chief Ceballos and Sergeant Boone, Sergeant Hill, they're going to go ahead and take care of the assignment portion, the inbounds. It'll be up to you, branch managers, to go ahead and talk the next assignment. So once this HRC comes back and puts you on the assignment, you're going to get two emails. One's going to be from Army, from HRC, the other one's going to be from MPD over at Panzer. The email from Panzer is going to have the documents that you're going to be needing in order to request your PCS orders. All right, for the enlisted assignment notification, triple alpha 234, and for the officers, the RFO, the prescript of the assignment. All right. The checklist that you receive is gonna be like the one you see over here on the right side of the screen, my left. All right. Every document that's in there, that's on the checklist, make sure you fill it out. If you have questions, let us know. But if you're missing one of those documents, once you bring your packet over to us, your orders will not be cut. Every single document is important for one reason or another. All right. So it behooves you to go ahead and turn it in. Hey, go ahead, wait. All right, so number one of the first documents, again, it'll be the CBA, IBA selection portion. CBA, obviously everybody should, by now, hopefully have a government travel card. Everybody, once we see the CBA election selection worksheet, it will be under CBA, meaning you go to SATO, SATO's gonna charge your PCS ticket to your government travel card. If for any reason you do not have a government travel card, the orders, once you get the PCS orders, it'll have a code on them for SATO to come back and charge the ticket to, all right? So again, it's mandatory for everybody, should be mandatory for everybody to have a CBA, but you know, we'll go with whatever you have. D831, all right? D831 is important. Why? Because it'll have the information based on when you report to your next assignment. All right? One of the things that throws everybody off is, well, my report date is August 10th, but I want to show up there 1 August. Don't worry about the 1 August report date. The D831, when you fill it out and before your supervisor signs it, the block 10B should have the report date of your assignment instructions. All right? Doesn't change. It does not mean that you have to get there on the 10th. You can get there earlier, but there's got to be different instances on why you can get there earlier, and I'll talk about them in a minute. Right? One thing to keep in mind, and financiers hasn't made a big deal out of it. I don't know if the other installations are having an issue or not, but if you're requesting permissive TDY, which is the 10 days for house hunting, make sure, per regulation, it has to be approved by an 05 or above. All right? If the game installation comes back and they see that Captain Smith signed your leave form, and you were asking for permissive TDY, they might come back and turn you around and charge you for the days. So, you know, again, keep that in mind. Permissive TDY, 05 or above. So we move on to the 5434, which is your request for a sponsor. Again, we'll go online to the act now that Army.mil. It's got a part of the attachment that you receive with the checklist. It's gonna have a step-by-step, you know, how to. If you follow the step-by-step, trust me, you're gonna be able to fill out your 5434, get in your packet without any questions, any errors. Right? But it's mandatory for everybody. Few times here and there, officers enlisted E8s, E9s, or officers 05s and above might get an exception based on, you know, the message that you get once you log into ACT. But again, everybody should be able to log in and do their 5434. All right, D93. D93 is just mainly for those of us that have dependents here in country. All right. Based off where the information that you have on your D93, it's where the orders are going to state. So if my dependents are here in Germany, I have to have a physical address for them here in country. If the address is back in Fayetteville, but my family's here, orders are not going to be cut for you. So it's going to be bouncing back and forth where you update your information. But it's important. Why? Because, of course, if you brought your family here command sponsored, then they should be on your orders for you to be government to be able to issue them out a ticket. If they're not on the orders, guess what? You're paying out of your pocket to get your wife and kids back to the States, or husband, spouse. The D93 has to be signed, verified by the admin folks, no later than a year out. All right, so if you're moving out in June and your last one was back in September, you're good to go. Anything before that, you're going to be outside the 12-month period. You're going to be extra well done. All right, reassignment checklist. Again, it's just the checklist that you see up to the right. It's going to tell you step by step who cannot, who needs to be filling out this information. For the 5118, there's one listed only. Officers, don't worry about it. You don't have to fill one out. 5118 is just going to have a whole bunch of, it's going to be a 5-page questionnaire. Yes, no, not applicables. Go through them. Whatever applies to you, mark yes. Whatever doesn't apply, no, or not available. Or not applicable, excuse me. However, the one thing that I want to point out is blocks 54 to 56, Charlie. Right? That portion is for the medical officers to come back and sign that you're eligible, or that you're eligible to go ahead and PCS without any medical issues. So keep that in mind. So if you're filling out your 5118 and you're a dental Cat 3, Cat 4, a medical Cat 3, Cat 4, trust me, they're not going to come back and sign because you're not eligible for PCS. And most likely your branch manager would have caught it onto it to let you know that you can't go anywhere until you were clear out. But again, 54 through 56, Charlie, that's the medical only. It can be either the docs over at MedOps, or you can take it over to the clinic over here on Apache, and they'll be able to sign up for you for the readiness section. Right? All right, so I know it's hard to see the small print, but this is what the Triple Alpha 234, the top portion looks like for the enlisted folks. It has your name, it has the report date, it has the unit you're going to. That is the information that the report date, the prescribed report date, that's what the date you're gonna be using for your DA-31. Again, don't deviate from it. All right? Now, if you're on your orders, you're authorized 30 days early report or 60 days early report, it's always misconstrued that, oh, I can leave before my DEROs. That's not true. All right? All it means is that your report date is, again, 8 August. Your DEROs is 1 May. You have, 30 to 60 days to report to your next unit earlier than the actual report date. That's all it means. Doesn't mean you get to leave early unless you obviously drop a curtailment and, gets approved, like, again, different instances. The bottom portion, again, a copy of the RFO for the officers, and also has the information, we didn't capture it here, but it'll have the date for reassignment on the bottom. Next. Continuing on the checklist, if you're a service member and you're going over from Germany back to another OCONUS assignment, additional paperwork needs to be completed before you can go ahead and get your orders. The first one is the 4036, excuse me. It's a medical and dental screening. Again, goes hand in hand with the 5118 that I mentioned earlier. Now, this one, it's for everybody, both officers and enlisted, so it doesn't apply just for one or the other. It's for everybody. Same, you take it to a dental clinic, take it to the medical folks, they'll sign off on it, that you clear out from Cat 1 or Cat 2. 5121, again, you're just selecting how long you want to be overseas. If you're going to Korea, obviously we know it's a 12-month tour. If you're going back to Alaska or Hawaii, it could be a 36 months. Several locations, 24, but those are based on that location. And of course, if you're going from here, let's say, to Alaska, right, and you want to take your wife, your kids, your spouse, whatever with you, they have to go through an EFMP screening. EFMP screenings, you can stop by the patch clinic, talk to the folks upstairs, and they can go ahead and schedule you for the screenings. The DA 45888, 4787 have to be completed and stand by EFMP in order for you to have cleared the EFMP portion of it and get the orders, allowing you to take your family with you. If it's not approved, again, family will stay back home, back in CONUS or wherever you decide to leave them. All right, so we've gone through the whole checklist. You get the checklist, the paperwork, support documents over to the PSSD folks, either myself, Sean Jimenez, Sean Allen. We'll be here. You make POCs on it. We go through it. We do a quick QC, make sure everything's good to go. We get it. We scan it, get it over to MPD. MPD, don't call up there. If you know folks, if you know somebody out there that works and you want to go knock on their door, they're gonna tell you the same thing that we always tell you. Go back to J1. They're your point of contact. So again, don't call them. They're not gonna give you any assistance. They're just gonna turn you around back to us. Right now, the turnaround time frame for the orders, it's anywhere between 7 days to a month. All right. Now keep that in mind. This is outside the PCS season. Once we start getting to the summer, that time frame, you're looking now at a month to probably 2 or 3 months, depending on the workload for the NPD. NPD only has 2 folks working up there, and they have to serve everybody from Panzer to Patch to Kelly. All right, so a lot of folks for just two guys. All right, but again, we'll get the packet, send it up to NPD. In return, NPD will scrub your another QC, and they'll go ahead and publish your orders. You're gonna get an email from NPD, hey, Sergeant Chavez. Here are your PCS orders, and it's gonna the bottom of the email is gonna have that same verbiage as I have on number 4. Hey, now that you have your orders, call CPF over at Panzer to go ahead and schedule your processing brief and start out your appointments. Give them a call 431-2599 or 2803. Talk to whoever is over there or stop by the office. Hey, I got my orders. I need to schedule my PCS out brief. They'll go ahead and set you down for a date. You go in and they'll start doing your pre-clearing for you. All you're knocking out on that portion is on the clearing part on the way out for the clearing papers is for sections that you probably never stop by, the library or the CIF, if you've never started with them, for them to come back and clear you before you even have your actual clearing papers. So it helps you out. It's to your advantage, not anybody else's. Once you have your clearing papers, all right, one thing that I didn't have in here is just a reminder. You're going through the process, you're getting ready to go. The 3 last stops that you're going to be doing on your clearing papers, it'll be SSO. Yep, right down on the right, excuse me. It'll be the SSO, Sergeant Seal, and her folks upstairs. The J1, so that way we can go ahead and keep a copy of your clearing papers, your orders, the E-form, and make sure that we sign off on the clearing papers. And then downstairs at the commandant's office. All right? Commandants, they'll have the requirements what they're gonna keep from you. But again, those will be the last 3 sections before you go back over to Panzer and do your final law process with the CPF and finance. Any questions? No? No? I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sergeant.
Just one thing that I would like to highlight, just because I remember that Master Sergeant Davis mentioned this to me earlier. Sometimes people come to him and ask him, like, hey, how come if I have positions, authorized positions, I don't have all my fields? Okay, so I touched on the Army Manning Guidance. We talked about Marine having a specific cap. So that information comes all the way from like the national strategy and down. So each of the services have to do their caps based on the priorities for each of them. Okay, so we all know that Korea is a higher priority right now. So just keep that in mind. Just because you have a position authorized doesn't mean that you're going to get a field.
All right. Wow. That's a lot of information, right? I mean, everybody's brain is like seriously smoking right now, I'm sure. That's a lot of information in a 1 hour block of time. And some of those slides I know were very hard to read, very small print and all that stuff. So these slides will be posted on our portal page. I will send out an email link to everybody for your future reviewing to go back and highlight specific areas that you may want to look more into, if you want to look at some of the pages a little deeper to understand exactly what it's doing. There are also a lot of